Hello, everyone. Before I start, I would like to say thank you. Thank you so much to Dr. Alex Kuhn for inviting me to be a part of this lovely symposium. When I looked at the list of the name of keynote speakers as well of the panels, I get very excited because there were some of the scholars that I have already quoted in my own research. So thank you so much. And also a special thank you to Chinese University of Hong Kong and other universities for hosting this lovely symposium. This is such a wonderful event. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So my name is Farhana Bakar, and I am a senior lecturer at Language Academy, Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, Universiti Teknologi Malaysia, which is in Malaysia. But I'm currently in New Zealand because I'm doing my postdoctoral / visiting scholars at the University of Otago, New Zealand. So for my topic for today, I'm sorry, this is about humor, but I'm going to be touching on the serious part of humor. So it's not as fun as other presenters' presentation, but I promise you it will be really, really insightful because I feel that this is a really important topic to be talked about when it comes to humor, especially for teachers, okay, for educators who are teaching and using humor in their teaching and learning and in the classroom. So my topic is on the appropriateness and the relevance of humor in the university classroom, which I took some insights from teachers or lecturers and also students. These papers actually I have already published, if I'm not mistaken, in 2020, but I have never had the opportunity to talk about it. And today I'm going to present okay, let's start. So, humor in general, okay, functions differently in different contexts. I gave you an example in a stand-up comedy. It's very different compared to humor used in teaching and learning. In a stand-up comedy, humor after humor, the types of humor that they use, the topic that they use. But when it comes to teaching and learning, humor functions and works differently, and it also enhances different types of effects. So in teaching and learning, there is one types of theory that we use. We call it instructional humor processing theory, IHPT, which is proposed by Wanzat et al. In 2010 and highlighted two pertinent aspects when it comes to humor, which is the appropriateness and the relevance of humor. Okay, so something to think about, something for you to ponder. When it comes to the context of teaching and learning in the classroom, what is it considered as appropriate or inappropriate humor? And what is considered as relevant or irrelevant humor? You don't have to tell me, but take a moment, okay? Think about it. Okay, what do you consider as appropriate or inappropriate humor? What do you consider as relevant or irrelevant humor? Okay, I give you a moment to think about it. Okay, just think. You don't have to tell me, just think about it. All right. All right. Okay. So I believe that you have some ideas, maybe some of based on your own experiences, maybe you have some ideas what is appropriate or inappropriate humor, relevant or irrelevant humor. Okay, before I explain further about it, let me just tell you why is it important. Okay. So understanding the appropriateness and the relevance of human is crucial. Okay, this is a story where I'm sharing with you that happened in my own country in Malaysia a few years back, where a high school teacher actually accidentally, I'm not too sure the background story of that, used what is considered as inappropriate humor while teaching about sex education in the classroom. So one particular student was not happy with the humor use, and she went home and then she started posting about the inappropriate joke used by that particular teacher. And she posted it on TikTok, and the whole thing went viral until the Malaysian Ministry of Education have to get involved in this particular issue. It was a national issue during that particular time. And it's all about some jokes that is considered inappropriate. All right. So if you want to know further about this particular issue, you may go online and check about it. I'm not going to elaborate more, but this is something that during that time, I feel scared to use humor. I was really, really scared to use humor. All right. So when it comes to the appropriateness and the relevance of humor, it plays an important role because the effects of humor in teaching and learning in the classroom, they're not always positive. So humor is considered as a double-edged effect. It can be funny when it's positive, and it can be offensive when it is negative. So we know there are many positive effects when it comes to humor in teaching and learning, but when it is negative, it gives a lot of negative effects. For example, in the context of a classroom, it can hurt students' feeling, okay? It can reduce students' self-esteem. It can make the student lose concentration while learning in the class, and it also impacts teachers' credibility negatively. So this is the reason why humor in teaching and learning has to be appropriate and relevant. Okay. So in previous studies, when it comes to humor, appropriateness and the relevance of humor, all right, previous study have already classified it into types of humor. So this is just one example that I'm showing by Wenzel et al. Okay, as you can see, when it comes to appropriate humor, it can be humor related to the material or the lecture content, humor unrelated to the lecture content, or self-disparaging humor, or international open humor. When it comes to inappropriate, we have offensive humor, disparaging humor, and then disparaging humor on other targets. And again, there is self-disparaging humor. As you can see, there is a part of self-disparaging humor and self-disparaging humor on both sides. It can be appropriate and it can be inappropriate. So what it tells here is that, you know what? The classifications of types of humor when it comes to appropriate or inappropriate, it can be overlapping. Some parts of self-disparaging humor can be appropriate. Some parts of self-disparaging humor can be inappropriate. And not only in these studies, there are many other studies. For example, studies by Vermeer and et al. In 2018 also, there can be some types of humor considered as appropriate. For example, offensive humor sometimes can be appropriate, and offensive humor sometimes can be inappropriate. So there's a lot of studies already been conducted when it comes to appropriateness and relevance humors, and mostly on the types of humors. All right, but the problem is that it can be overlapping. Some types can be appropriate, sometimes can be appropriate, even though it came from the same type. All right, so what Vermeer et al. Have already mentioned is that they argue that the overlapping between appropriate and inappropriate humor is because of teachers and students' humor orientation. All right, so when a teacher with a high humor orientation is best paired with the students who are also have high level of humor orientation. So when this happens, the teacher can use inappropriate humor and the students won't be offended of it. All right, but in reality, we have mixed students with high humor orientation and low humor orientation. And this seems to be a challenge for many teachers who wish to use humor effectively in their teaching, because it creates uncertainty, because we're not too sure which type of humor that is suitable to be used, right? And also in reality, many teachers use humor instinctively, all right? Me, myself, as a researcher of humor, find it very difficult to ascertain what type of humor. What is this type of humor? Is it riddles? Is it offensive humor? Is it self-disparaging humor? Is it disparaging others' humor? As a researcher of humor myself also, I feel it's very challenging to ascertain certain types. So this may suggest that it may even more challenging for teachers who are not researching into humor but want to use humor and not too sure about what type of humor is appropriate or inappropriate, that's relevant or not relevant. So in my study, what I aim to do was that to investigate the two teachers and students' perception of appropriateness and the relevance of humor. So to be very specific, what I wanted to understand in their own words, what is teacher considered as appropriate or inappropriate humor, and relevant or irrelevant humor in teaching and learning. Okay, so what I did was that I've already managed to get 5 teachers. These are award-winning teachers who have already voted by the students to be really good in using humor while teaching in the class. I actually have a long list of the award-winning teachers. I have already contacted them, but some of them could not participate in this study because during the particular time when I was uh, collecting some data, they were not teaching any classes, or they were on sabbatical, or they were simply could not be a part of this study. So, but I have managed to get 5 teachers, award-winning teachers, who have been noted to use humor effectively in their teaching. And I've also managed to get their undergraduate students who were learning with them during that particular time when I was collecting the data to participate in these particular studies. So the teachers came from different academic disciplines, some of them from anatomy, biochemistry, chemistry, psychology, and so on. So what I did with them was that I had a one-to-one interview with all the teachers and the students who agreed to participate in these particular studies. And I've analyzed the data of their perceptions, okay, on appropriateness and the relevance of humor using a thematic analysis by King and Horrocks 2010. So the findings, okay, I will go through very quickly. I've taken some quotes from some of the students and the teachers. I will try my best not to bore you with a long list of findings, okay? So the students and the teachers' perception, what is constituted as appropriate or inappropriate humor specifically? Okay, number 1, appropriate humor is considered as relevant humor. So the student said that, okay, it is appropriate to the context. It has to do with the content. And the teacher have a similar perception. They say that you make yourself relatable, okay, and it has to be something that is related to the teaching and learning. So appropriate humor is relevant humor. Next, appropriate humor happen at suitable time in suitable manner. Okay, so it's not joke after joke after joke. This is what the students say. And the teacher also have a similar perception that say that it's not a 1-hour comedy show kind of a thing. So if that's the case, if they feel that they're not doing their job as an educator, as an instructor. All right, so it's not a clown-like humor. It's not a stand-up comedy. So appropriate humor is considered a humor that happens at a suitable time and a suitable manner in the teaching and learning context. All right, next, appropriate humor enhances teachers' credibility. the student mentioned that because of humorous teacher is not just humorous, the way she talks or he talks, and the way they present the lecture slide, the teachers appear enthusiastic. Okay, the teacher also have a similar perception where they said, I feel really enthusiastic about this, so let's have a fun conversation about it. All right, and inappropriate humor is considered as disrespectful humor. So the students and the teachers mentioned the word like offensive, being rude, the word swear, okay, not sexist, racist, again, offensive. So the teachers and the students, they understood that inappropriate humor is disrespectful humor. And the teachers tend not to use it, and the students are aware of it. All right? So let's go to what is considered as relevant or irrelevant humor. Okay, the students and the teachers perceive that relevant humor is humor related to teaching and learning. Okay, it's related to the learning content, whatever they are learning in the classroom. So the student mentions about fitting perfectly with what the teachers is trying to talk about. And another student said it's related. The teachers also mentioned that students want to know why it is funny. So they want to learn about the material that underlying the cause of the joke. So what is considered as relevant humor? That is relevant humor, which is humor related to the learning content that the teachers were teaching during that particular time. Next, relevant humor is humor related to daily experiences in life. So the students say that humor which is relatable to the larger audience, okay, that's related. And the teachers also mentioned that as humorous stories in some way kind of teach what you are learning is actually relevant to your life. So they feel that if the teachers is using relevant humor, which is related to daily experiences in life, is considered as relevant humor. All right. So now, what is irrelevant humor? So irrelevant humor is humor that students do not understand. So the two students said that the teachers made jokes and they expected the students to laugh, but sometimes the student don't get it. All right. So students talked about it. All right. When there are some instances where the teachers use joke and the student don't get it, so it become irrelevant. However, in my studies, the teachers do not reflect it on this particular thing. All right. So I feel that maybe because the teachers were unaware that their failed attempts of humor were perceived as irrelevant by the students, okay, and they feel they do not realize that they have already made the students feel disconnected to their learning, okay. So summary and implication of this particular study that I have already done on appropriateness and relevance of humor are pretty much very straightforward. So when it comes to appropriateness of humor, appropriate humor is relevant humor is when the humor is relevant to the learning content, all right? And also, when teachers are using humor that is relevant to what students are learning in the classroom, okay, appropriate humor happens at a suitable time in a suitable manner, meaning to say that humor should not be an extreme type of humor. It's not like a clown-like humor or stand-up comedy humor. So ensure that humor can help to facilitate or assist students learning cognitively and emotionally. And then when it comes to appropriate humor that enhance teachers' credibility, by using appropriate humor, all right, teachers' credibility will be seen as an, good, positively. They will view teachers positively. And inappropriate humor is a disrespectful humor. Not only focus on the types of inappropriate humor, but also be mindful that in the class, you have mixed humor orientation students. Some have high humor orientation, some have low. So please be aware to use only humor that is appropriate for both high and low humor orientation. And when it comes to, when it comes to relevant humor that is related to the learning content. All right. Occasionally, teachers use humor that is not specifically on the learning content, but it's okay as long as it has other purposes. For example, you feel that students are disconnected, so you want to grab the student's attention, so you quickly use the humor to grab that student's attention. It can use. So this may suggest that teachers can use humor that is not related. However, humor should still serve other function in teaching and learning. And relevant humor is related to daily experiences in life, all right? Related to the content or the personal experiences. And irrelevant humor that students do not understand. So highlight the importance of teachers being aware of their own failed attempts of humor. So teachers, please be aware of that. Students noted that they feel disconnected and confused if they don't get what the humor that you're trying to say. Okay, they don't understand what you're trying to say by the use of humor. So please, if that happened, please explain the connection, the intention, the meaning behind the failed attempts of humor, so that students don't feel confused and they're able to follow the stream of information delivered by the teachers. Okay, I think that's all from my presentation today on the appropriateness and the relevance of humor. Thank you so much. Is there any question?
Thank you very much, Dr. Parker. Okay, so right now is the Q&A session. So anyone who is in this venue here, this theater here, that would like to have questions? Oh, we do. Hold on, please. I believe she can hear you. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Farhana. Very nice to meet a fellow Malaysian. Actually, thank you for this. I think it's very insightful about what is appropriate humor, especially in the Asian context. I just want to understand a little bit, what's the definition of humor orientation? So that's my first question. And I understand you say that we need to use humor that is relevant for those who have low and high humor orientation. Do you have any practical examples about that?
Okay. So your question is that, thank you so much for your question. It's really good question. So what is humor orientation? And another one is examples. Am I correct?
Because you mentioned about how, there is relevant humor that is good for students that are low humor orientation and high humor orientation. Any examples of that? What kind of humor that might be?
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, okay, what is considered as humor orientation? Some people, they have a high appreciation of humor. So even the little things, they get they can easily laugh on it. All right. And some people, they have very low humor orientation, humor appreciation. So what previous studies have done is that, okay, when the teachers have when students have high level appreciation of humor, which is high level of orientation of humor, even it's offensive or inappropriate or irrelevant, they still feel that it's humorous. Some people, when they have very low level of humor orientation, which is appreciation towards humor, they don't easily laugh about it. Okay, in different contexts, for example, my own experience in teaching in Malaysia, yes, they can easily laugh because this is not generally, but generally in Malaysia, they have very high level of humor appreciation.
I agree.
But when I'm teaching in New Zealand, for example, there are quite a lot of people, they do not appreciate humor that much. So even though other people will be laughing, there will be half of the class who don't want to laugh, who do not want to laugh, even though half of the class laugh about on the humor, they just don't laugh. They have a very low precision or orientation of humor. All right, so be aware when I said there are mix of students who have high level of appreciation, low level, and when it comes to high level of appreciation, even though sometimes it's offensive or inappropriate, they still laugh. They feel that it's okay, it's a part of teaching and learning. This humor is just being helpful. But with students who have very low level, they might feel it is offensive, they might feel it inappropriate, they might feel it irrelevant, and they just don't appreciate it, and it might contribute to the negative effect of humor. All right, I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, that's very clear. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So we do have one question from the Zoom, I believe. Can you please let us know what the question is there?
Hi, am I on Zoom? Unmuted. This is Dr. Chen Yang from the University of Hong Kong. Can
Okay.
everybody hear me?
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Alex. Great event. Thank you very much for
you.
the speaker. So it's quite insightful because talking about humor in class, my question would be, or a little bit of comment would be, a lot of humor the teacher uses quite spontaneous and based on their own experience. So sometimes when you have a joke that is not planted or not designed, and it comes out, then when it's out and it's already too late for you to think about whether it's appropriate or relevant or not. And especially in nowadays, the climate in education, especially for teachers, there will be a lot of issues related to the for example, the audience, the diverse audience. So this will be sort of related to the DEI, where the diversity, equality, and inclusiveness. So depending on the region you're giving the lecture, as you described in New Zealand and in Malaysia, is probably quite different climate, and also the cultural, the ethnicity. So a lot of these may cause problems. It may be offensive or may be appropriate in some region or with a crowd, a specific crowd of people, audience, but it will be offensive for other. And especially in Hong Kong, all the universities is quite diverse and more diverse. So this, any advice for our teachers to how can we navigate this sort of, like, I wouldn't say treacherous territory, but how can we be more aware of whether our joke is appropriate or not? Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you so much for that question. All right, that was also the reason why I did this particular research. I myself was like, okay, which one is appropriate, which one is not, which one is relevant, which one is not, right? And then when I read about it, as I mentioned in my lecture just now, it's more on the types of humor, which one, all this long list, which is really good and comprehensive, but we need something that is in simple words, where people or specifically teachers, can just talk about it, what is appropriate, what is inappropriate, what is relevant, what is irrelevant. And as I mentioned, if that happens where you feel that it's inappropriate or it's irrelevant, all right, if you have already used it, my suggestion would be something that maybe you explain to the student. Okay, maybe you explain to the student, okay, what is the intention behind that particular humor? Why do you use that particular humor? Because, for example, if you use self-deprecating humor, self-disparaging humor, where you are only making fun of yourself, but sometimes, a little bit too much of it can, can affect your credibility as a teacher. But if you already used it and you just realize about it, my suggestion would be explain to the students why you used it, so that the students understand the meaning behind it, as to what is the joke is related to, what are the things you're trying to deliver, the message that you're trying to deliver. All right, and I truly agree that humor is very subjective, and different contexts, they have different perceptions of humor, and I would definitely recommend for you to expand my research on the appropriateness and the relevance of humor in your own context, so that we know more what is considered as appropriate and relevant humor within different countries and within different region and different races and also races as well. Yeah, because it's quite cultural at times. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
the
very
question.
much for the advice. I think explanations, if you realize something that might be inappropriate, probably explain right on site. Why do you do this? Why do you, express this with this way? Will probably be helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bakar.